60 Minutes Rewind.
From 1929 to 1932, this time period is often referred to as part of the Great Depression and very difficult times for the United States. The 1928 United States presidential election was the 36th quadrennial presidential election held on Tuesday, November 6, 1928. Republican Secretary of Commerce Herbert Hoover defeated the Democratic nominee, Governor Al Smith of New York. Hoover favored policies in which government, businesses, and labor all worked together to achieve economic prosperity, but he generally opposed a direct role for the federal government in the economy. These policies and promises from Hoover primarily fell through. That's a good reason why FDR was then elected president in the 1932 election 4 years later. Hoover believed that all individuals, or nearly all, have the potential to succeed on their own without the aid of government, and that kind of relates back to him generally opposing a direct role for the government in the economy. So the partnership between businesses and government during the time was shown through associative states. This was the idea of rugged individualism. So, switching topics, Hooverville became a common term for shack towns and homeless encampments during the Great Depression. There were dozens in the state of Washington, hundreds throughout the country, each testifying to the housing crisis that accompanied the employment crisis of the early 1930s, related to the stock market crash. There was public anger at Hoover. He was seen as cold and heartless. Could you imagine thousands and thousands of people just in these small shacks using H blankets as blankets, which were newspapers? This was mainly a time where Americans just faced wicked hard times. Depression devastates people's lives, increases homelessness and hunger. Depressions in cities, lose jobs, people evicted from their houses, apartments. Their soup kitchens, free food for the needy. Bread lines, free food from charity and local governments. African Americans and Latinos, less pay, more discrimination between them, unfortunately. And for rural areas, there was over 40,000 farms foreclosed because of the Great Depression. They just couldn't afford to keep paying for their farm, and because of soil exhaustion. So Dust Bowl, drought on farms from Texas to North Dakota. Soil exhausted, overproduction, nothing grows, dust storms. That's why you need to refertilize your soil and tear it up. Okies, Grapes of Wrath, migrant workers follow Route 66 to California because they're evicted from their farms. Effects on American family, they keep their morals low. So men in the streets walk and look for work, depressing. It just wasn't a great time for these people, and it's really heartbreaking to see these people just looking for work to provide a living for their kids and their family. Hobos ride railroad boxcars going all over the U.S. just looking for work. Direct relief, cash and food for poor, but there's no federal government system at the time. So this probably has an effect on Hoover in the 1932 election, because without a federal government system in place, there's no help from them in helping their own people of America get back to their economy like they were before the Great Depression. Women and children struggle to survive, truly. Women try to save and work, some see as taking men's jobs almost. Children, they're in a weird place because they're too young to work, and then all these schools are getting shut down, so what can they do really to help out their parents, They try to work, but can they? Even if their parents can't find jobs, how are they going to find jobs? There's major social and psychological effects on these people. Suicide up 30%, developing habits of saving and thriftiness. It was just a crazy time period, and we're lucky that we haven't seen anything like this in probably hopefully forever, because we have learned from our mistakes, and when we learn about this, history tends to not repeat itself, because if it did, we would be in a really bad situation, and no one wants to go through that. But yeah, the times 1929, 1932, very tough. Not much government help, because that's what Hoover believed in. And all these issues really led to just Americans wanting more from their president. And you could say that's why FDR had covered those 48 states and won the election in 1932 in a landslide. So that is Opinionated Editorial on the presidency, election, 1929, 1932, and what was life like back then.